Alright guys, today we're taking a look at a game called Sabotage from Tim Flowers. It is a game that plays 2 or 4 players, 60 minutes long to play, and it's a game that I'm really excited to get into because it kind of has, it's basically a deduction game mixed in with hidden movement, and it kind of has like a Captain Sonar kind of flavor where you're kind of like having a board split between each other, and it's a team villain versus team spies. I'm really excited to take a look at this one because of the theme alone and just all the components in here. Let me show you guys a quick overview of how the game actually plays and of all the components in the game, and let's go ahead and do it now.
Gaming tech, eating brekkie is the gaming tech, going for a recce is the gaming tech, gaming techie is the gaming tech, gaming techie.
Alright guys, so here's Sabotage, the board game. I wanted to give you a quick overview of the pieces in the game and also an overview of the rules so you guys get a better understanding of what the game is actually like. Let's go ahead and take a look here real quick on what the pieces are like so you guys can see the production quality of this. So this is the villain side, as you can tell. Those are all the villain pieces. And look at these outstanding pieces that are in the game. These are some of the characters in the game. They're just really, really well done. Those are the Doomsday devices. So just really, really good quality. The grid board. And then the box is actually used. You'll see the other side for the actual barrier. This is the front and the back side of it. Here is this is set up for a 4-player game, of course, and this is the other players set up just like the other one with their own cards. And this is actually the tray it comes with, which is even more awesome. This is the games tray that sits on top. That they give you one for each. You got the spies over there and the villain ones over here. So when you put this game away, all the stuff for the spies is on one, and all the stuff for the villains is on the other. So it just makes it really easy to actually set up, which is always good. And then this is, of course, the other side of it. So this is what they see on the other side. And same idea. Same board, obviously, with some different cards and different people. And the boards are obviously different. So here on the top of the board, it's even cooler. This is a game tray right on top of the board. And it's actually cool because since it sits in the middle of both players, it actually acts like a scoring track. So basically, this is the track for the spies to win, and this is the track for the spies to win, and this is the track for the villains to win. So it keeps track of the hits and the things you're hacking and stuff, and just a really cool way to look up right at the screen and be like, hey, who's winning, really quickly. So that stuff is cool as well. Here is an overview of Sabotage. I'm going to be giving you a little bit of an overview of how the game works. Excuse some of the camera movement and stuff because this board is just very big, so I have to keep maneuvering back and forth because this is set up for a 2-player game. But we are starting on the villain side. I'm going to show you guys a couple of turns on both sides. So I'm starting on the villain side, and I'm going to give you guys a little quick run-through on how the actual game works. So first thing you need to know is this is obviously villain versus the spies. We're on the villain side right now. And what the villain is trying to do to win the game is they're trying to attack the spies 5 different times. Once the villain attacked the spies 5 times, they win the game. What the spies are trying to do is they are trying to hack these Doomsday devices and hack them 8 times. Once they hack these Doomsday devices 8 times, they win the game. So that is the objective for both. So this is the player board for 1 player, and this is the player board for the 2nd player. Like I said, you can play this 2 players if you want to, but it's more geared towards a full 4-player game. So there's conversations going back and forth. But I tried it as a 2-player game, and it's still fun, but it's just not it's not the same game when you're playing with 4 people because there's a lot more constant table talk, and the other team can listen to what your table talk is and use that to their advantage on where you're moving. Which there is none of that when you're only playing with 2 players, obviously. But either way, it's still a fun 2-player game, but definitely a 4-player game at its heart. So. Start of the game. So basically, you choose. The villain are always the ones that are going to roll the dice. You start the turn by rolling the dice, where you pick one of the 2 villains to roll the dice. Let's say that this is what the roll was. I roll the dice. Basically, what happens is everybody puts the dice in the same exact way. So I rolled these dice, and I got a 1, 2, 4, and a 5 as the villain. The villain puts their dice the exact same way, and this is supposed to be a 5. So they turn their dice the same way, and then the spies are doing the exact same thing. So everyone's dice is set to the same exact number. That is part 1 of what you're doing on the turn. The next part that you're doing on this is the planning phase. The planning phase is basically when you're taking your hand of cards, and the villains start with their same hand. So they start with these 6 cards. They have 3 moves. 1 move's already over there. A stun gun, an emotion detector, and a generator. So this guy has the same exact thing. Everyone starts with the same. The spies obviously start with their own, which we'll look at later, but this is what the villains start with. So in the planning phase, you basically are going through and you're going to plan which actions you're going to take. You can see here that there's 4 different slots for putting your action cards, and everyone's playing this turn simultaneously. So all villains and all spies are doing this at the exact same time. And basically what you're doing is you're using the dice that you got and you rolled, and you're using it to play these cards. Now, in the beginning of the game, everyone's only using 2 dice. You can use any of the numbers on either of these dices, but only 2 of these can actually be used. And you can remind yourself because it says generator underneath here, and that just means that you need to unlock the generator and make them active before you can get more dice. So that's just kind of a little reminder. So obviously the game just started, so you're not actually going to have more than 2 dice. So let's say for my first turn, I am going to move. My character is starting off right here. This is my character. And these are actually, I'm going to start my character right here. This is the Doomsday device, and this is the generator. So you can see the 3 Doomsday devices and then the other generator right here. So he's starting right there. So for my first turn, I'm going to say I'm going to move, and you can see on the bottom corner of these cards, it says 1 through 4. That means that you need to place a dice between 1 and 4 on this card to be able to use the move action. So I can take this 1 through 4, and I can put it here. Now you can see the arrows on it. You have to actually plan where you're actually planning on moving. My guy's right here. I want to go up to the generator, so I'm going to put this dice on top to show that I'm going to move up. For my next turn, for my next action, I'm going to use the generator action. And the generator says I need to put a 3 or a 4 here. So I would take this 4, I'd put it right here. And that is my planning phase for this guy. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here. The first turn is pretty simple. So we're going to do the exact same thing on my turn. So I'm going to do a 1 and a 4 sitting over here. So they have both been planned and they're both set up and ready to go. Now, for the planning phase on the spy side, let's go ahead and flip the table and let's go to the other side. Now, on the spy side, things start a little bit differently. They obviously start off with different things. They start with a hacking device, an earpiece, a parachute, and 3 move and scan cards. So that is the starting hand for the other side. So basically, for these guys, what we're going to do is when you're not on the table yet for the spies, you have these 2 characters here. They start off the board. And when you start off the board as a spy, the first thing you must do is parachute in, because you're basically parachuting into the building. As you can see, it doesn't cost any dice. That's what that symbol means. So that's going to be my action 1. And that has to be what both people do on both sides because they're both off the board. Now, when you put the parachute on there, you have to take your guys that you're using and you kind of have to put them face down like this. So you know that they're parachuting in and they can't be attacked by the villains right now because they're technically parachuting in. So I could do this, and I could put the other guy anywhere I want, and I could put him right here in the hallway. So that is my first, that's what I do for my first action. So my second action, I'm going to say I am going to move and scan. Move and scan requires a 1 through a 4. So I would do 1 through 4, so I could put this one here, and then for the other one, I could do the exact same thing. I'm going to put a move and scan over here, and we're going to take the 1 and put it right there. Now, here I can actually take a third action because, as you can see, the first one didn't require a dice, and I said you have 2 dice when you start the game. So, when I move and scan, I'm going to now place a hack here, and that requires a 5 or a 6. So, that 5 or a 6 there, I'm going to place on there, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So that has now been set up, and both of these have now actually planned their planning phase. So everyone across the table has now planned their planning phase, and everyone has placed their cards that they want to, and then everyone announces that they're done. And now the villains are the first ones to take their turn. So let's go back and flip over to the other side. So back on the other side, now you can pick either villain to go first. It doesn't matter which villain you want to go first. You basically now carry out the actions that you just took. So for my first action, I said I wanted to move. So for my first action, this is the guy that's controlling that board. So I move 1, just like that. And you can see on the top here that this determines if you have to say anything about what you're doing in this. So you can see that it has a circle with a slash over it. That means I do not need to announce to the other team that I'm moving. So right now I moved without saying a word. So my teammate the opposing team, the spies, have no idea where I just moved because it's telling me to be silent. So I don't say anything. On this one as well, this is now a generator. It's telling me to add 1 blue cube to the generator in your room. So I take one of the blue cubes that I start with, and I put it right in the generator. You can see that there's 2 slots for it, one on the left and one on the right there. And I added a generator cube. And that, again, I don't announce anything to my team that I did that. And the reason I'm using this generator is because that is how the villains actually gain their other dice. Remember, I told you you only start off with 2 of these dices that you can actually use. When I have a generator fully active, which means I have 2 of these blue things on them, if that's active, that means I now get a 3rd dice. And if my other one becomes active, I now get the 4th dice. So that is the reason why you would play a generator card. So this guy is going to do the exact same thing. He is moving, and he is moving down 1. And then he's going to place a generator token on there as well. So that was a simple turn. That is both of the villains going first and doing what they need to do. Now we flip back to the other side, and now the spies now take their turn. So now it's the spies' turn to take their turn. And the first thing they do that we said is parachute. So you can see here, it actually says name. So unlike the other one that had the circle with an X that told you not to say anything, here you actually have to say something. So it says name parachute. So what you have to do is you stand your character up on the spot that you said you were going to be in, and you have to announce to the other team if you're on the bottom half or the top half or the left or the right. So I could either say I'm on the left side of the board or on the bottom half of the board. So I would just announce right now to my team or to the rest of the table, I am on the bottom half. So that is this half. Then the other person would parachute. So that would end his parachute action. The next thing here says move and scan. So basically I move up 1 and I don't say anything about the movement. But then for my scanning, as that card says, when you scan, you basically are asking the other team if you're basically going to ask them if they're either in you're going to go scan blue, scan green, or scan red, or scan orange. That is one of the options you have. You can scan a color section, or you can scan a column. So you could say scan B. So you can see all these have letters on them for all the quadrants. So you could say scan B and go that way. Or you can scan a row. So I could scan this whole entire row and I could say scan I, and then I would scan this whole entire row here. And the reason you're trying to scan is because you're trying to scan to see if your other opponents are in there. If you're trying to find out if the villains are in this direction. And when you actually scan for them, the problem with that is you're actually revealing yourself, because you're basically giving information to the villains on where you are, because you can only scan if you're in that area. So if I wanted to scan, I could scan green because this character is sitting here. So I could say scan green, and then the opposing team would say yes or no if they're in the green area. Or I could say scan I because I'm sitting here and I could scan all of the direction of I. But I cannot say scan quadrant blue or scan quadrant orange or scan red, or I can't say scan J, scan N and do that column or any of that, because I'm not in that section. So by inherently scanning and looking for the spies to see if they're there, I'm actually telling them where I am, because they now know that I have to be in this section. If I ask them to scan for green, they know I'm in the green area, because I wouldn't have been able to take this action if I wasn't there. Or if I scan for I, or if I scan for A, for the row or the column, they know I'm in this area, because, like I said, that gives them information about one of the certain spots I'm in. On the contrary, though, the reason you are trying to scan for other opponents is because it gives you basically these tokens, which are right here, which are not supposed to be placed yet. I left them here for the last game we were playing. But these are basically unlock tokens. So they start off on the side of the board. When you scan, if you successfully scan an opponent, so if a spy is actually in this area, if a spy was green, and they announce that, yes, I'm here in this area, he tells you the room that he's in. He will say, I'm in room A, for example. That basically gives you unlock tokens for both your teammates. So even if this guy's the one that scanned, both teammates get an unlock token. And basically what an unlocking token is for is you can immediately either put it on your swagger track, and if you put 2 here, you can see that it fills this quadrant, and that's how you unlock your dice. So I can put this, and now if this was both here, I now can use 3 dice every turn. If I fill this one, I get 4. That's your swagger track. But on the contrary, you can also, on the flip side, put these on here. And this is the unlock track. So if I put 1 cube here, I immediately gain this thermo vision that I can now add to my hand, to my starting hand that I started with. I now get to add this card immediately and get to use that ability anytime. Then over here, if I put 2 here, it says to choose 1. So on a future turn, if I gain more of these unlock tokens, I can put them here, and when 2 are filled, I can pick one of these, and the other one gets removed completely from the game. Same thing with this one. When you fill all 3, now you get to grab one of these 2 and pick one and put it to your hand, and the other one gets thrown out. So that's why scanning as the spy side, you want to be able to scan as much as possible to be able to unlock as many of these tokens as fast as possible to get your dice and also get more ability cards into your hands. So that's what he would do. He would scan and do that. And then obviously his last part of his turn is hack. And he's standing right here. He would say, I'm hacking I. He announces that to everyone. So now everybody knows he's at the I location. So he hacks one of the Doomsday devices. So now he's 1/8 of the way to winning because he takes one of these Doomsday tokens. He gives it to the opposing side. And he puts that on his Doomsday, the same one he hacked, just as a reminder to say this one's been hacked once, because each device can only be hacked 4 times. So they can't hack this one 8 times. They would have to go to a different one to be able to hack. So, and that's how they would win. So that would be that first player's turn, that spy's turn. Now the next spy would do the exact same thing. They would parachute in, they would move and scan, and they would hack and do that sort of thing. And then once that is done, now that all players across the table have taken their actions and they've done it, now you basically just take all the dice back. You take them back from where they were. Everyone grabs their cards. So you always take the cards that you plan for actions. You don't lose them or anything. They all go right back into your hands. And you get them back for the next turn. And then the villain again rolls a dice. And you basically do the exact same thing again. And the red dice that we played on the Doomsday token on the other side is now sitting over here to let us know that this one's been hacked once. Now on a future turn, my guy is sitting right here. Now you know that room has just been hacked, so you know that other spy is sitting there. So on a future turn, I could, for example, move over here to try and take him out and shoot him and things like that to try and attack him. Because on the villain side, you have something called a stun gun. And the stun gun requires a 5 or a 6, and this is how you attack and hit another spy. So you can see the star symbol right here is a star and then a red little box. So that means that the star is where you are. That's representing your character. So it basically means that I could attack one space next to me. So basically, if I was in this location right here, I can attack someone and just say attack NK in the kitchen. So that means that if the spy was there, I'd basically attack them. They would go off the board and they wouldn't be able to take any other actions this turn if they haven't gone yet. And they would have to parachute in because the next time, like we said, when they're off the board, they have to parachute in every time. So that is how me attacking and me trying to find where people are is exactly what I have to do in the game 5 times to win the game. And like I said before, since I know that they just went into this room and actually hacked the Doomsday device, I can next turn go around here and try and find them and try to attack them and stuff like that. So that is how they win. They have this stun gun. So once all those actions are done, once you grab your cards back, you basically roll your dice all over again, and then you start your planning phase all over again. Everyone plans their cards all over again, and you're maneuvering around the board to do this. And the villain side, they have a different way of unlocking their dice, with the generators like I talked about before. Obviously, when the generators are full and they have 2 of those blue cubes on there, you can get more dice, but as the opposing spy side, they can go where one of these generators are, and if they're standing on a square space and they take that hack action that we talked about on one of the generators, you actually have to remove a cube from the actual generator, and it goes back to the side. So now they deactivated one of your generators. So now on your next turn, you don't get to use 3 dice if you had 3 dice unlocks because now this generator is deactivated. So it's kind of going back and forth and stuff like that with the opposing teams. But one of the things you could do also as the villain, we talked about the swagger track on the other side on how you actually unlock the swagger track for the other side and how they unlock their abilities up here. The villain works slightly differently. You can see that they have all their unlock tokens sitting right here on these numbers. And the way that it works for them is if you roll your dice at the start of the turn, instead of using one of the 2 dice that you start with for one of the actions that you place, you could technically use them for unlock. So if I were to use that for the unlock, that basically means that I take this cube out of the 2 spot, because these are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I would just place it there, and now I unlock the flashlight, and now I can put this in my hand immediately. But the difference is that on a future turn, if I roll the dice and I wanted to use this to unlock more of my cards up there, the 2's already been taken. So I couldn't use the dice that was rolled on 2. On a future turn, I would have to take a 6 or something, or one of the other colors that aren't being used. And then I could take that, put it on the next spot, and continue unlocking my cards that way. So just a different unlocking system than what these spies are doing. So you basically are doing that back and forth, like I said, And you use these pieces on top to determine this is the hits. So anytime I hit the opposing spies, they would take one of these yellow tokens and one of these green. And anytime that they do the doomsday hacking, I would take one of these yellow just to give me a slight benefit, because what the yellow tokens do in this game basically is when you roll one of these dices, the yellow tokens for one turn or for one time will let you change the number that was rolled one higher or one lower. So, and that includes going from 1 to a 6 or a 6 to a 1. So I can make a 3 into a 4 if I needed it to be for one of the action cards I was trying to play. If I was trying to play the stun gun and only 4s were rolled, I can make one of them into a 5 and spend one of my yellow tokens. And everyone starts with 2 on each side, but I unlock more because it's basically giving you a slight advantage as your opponent gets closer to winning. They're giving you these yellow tokens to give you a slight advantage because they keep winning. Same thing with the other side. When I keep attacking them, they get a yellow token as well for the exact same purpose. And it basically goes like this. And what's cool is that each of these cards have a different ability because it's based on the character you're playing. And these little reminder cards that are sitting over here is actually for your opposing team. So the hacker and the acrobat is what my opposing team is playing. So I know what their special abilities are on those cards that are sitting above their board. So I know what they're doing and what they can possibly do on their turns. So each character is going to be different. There's 4 characters per side that come, so you can pick 2 of whatever variation you want. And all of their character ability cards are going to be different. But everyone starts with the exact same hand, the 6 that we talked about before. So let's look at just a couple of these abilities just to give you guys an idea. Like this one, for example, is a flashlight. And the flashlight just basically lets you reveal these rooms. It has the star symbol 3, reveal these rooms. And they lose swagger. So that's swagger track that I talked about, that though they unlock their dice on the spy side. If I use that flashlight and I'm sitting over here and then decide to use a flashlight, it says I can use it for 3, right? Let's say I was right here. So that means I can say flashlight JFB because there's 3 spots I can go in, and all 3 spots. So I scan for them, and then they would tell me if they were there or not. And if they were there, they would lose the entire first portion of their swagger track if they had any. And that's basically what the flashlight does. You're basically trying to pawn them and figure out where they are. So not only where you know where they are, you're making them lose swagger points as well. And you can see some of these other abilities here, what they do. Very different from me. It says declare any room in your row or column. Spies cannot hack here this round. So the hacking, if you pick a certain spot, like if you packed here, they couldn't hack that for this round if you played the tear gas there. So all different abilities, and then you get to the more powerful ones, of course, like that rocket launcher. It says destroy walls sum of 13. So if you put dice up to the sum of 13 on that rocket launcher, once you finally unlock it, it can actually blow up a wall. These little wooden things are a wall. So if you had to move a character, you have to go around this wall to be able to go around it. But if you destroy this wall, you can actually just take this wall off of both. And the other side would also remove the wall from the same spot as well. Since it's basically the same building you're playing in, and that wall's now open. So now you can get to that doomsday device much faster instead of going all the way around. So like I said, all of these abilities are all different for each character. We're obviously not going to go through each single one, but that's kind of a general overview of how the game works. You're going back and forth, unlocking your ability cards up there on both sides, unlocking more dice, moving around the board, trying to basically either as a spies hack the doomsday devices 8 times to win, or if you're the villains, you're trying to attack them 5 times to win the game. You're going back and forth, trying to be the first person to do that. And then when one of the teams does that, they obviously are the side that wins the game. And that's basically an overview of the game. The game is not that complicated. The game is pretty easy to play. The only thing is that when you're playing with 3 new people, obviously there's a lot of explaining to do in the beginning on what their different actions can do. So it may take a game or two. It might be one of those games where you have to play a game and then everyone goes, oh, I got you now. Now I know what to do. Let's play it a second time because now I know how to find you. Now I know how to hack and all that stuff. So it may just be one of those games, but it's not that hard once you play a game or two under your belt and you realize what your abilities on those cards do and stuff like that. And you get the gist of how to move around the board. So with that basic overview, guys, let's go ahead and get to the table now. I've played this game a few times, and I want to talk about what I feel about this game, if it's worth your time, how much this board game actually costs, what I think about all the pieces and the design and everything. So let's go ahead and do that now. All right, guys, so that was Sabotage, the board game. So I'm just going to outright say it. I really, really like this game. More importantly, I really like the theme that's on here. Villains versus Spies is obviously a theme that's going to grab a lot of people immediately just because of the theme. And, having the villains versus spies, having them hack the doomsday devices, or having the villains go ahead and kill the spies is just very thematic, and everything just flows really well in here. Obviously, this game, a lot of people have compared this game to something like Captain Sonar, Captain Sonar being the real-time game where 8 players, it's 4v4. It's like a battleship type game where you're fighting each other back and forth. I can see why people are comparing it, but they're obviously very different games. They don't play the same. They're not. Captain Sonar is a real-time game. This is more about management and taking your actions and playing accordingly and stuff. This is obviously a hidden movement game that you're trying to, just like Captain Sonar is, where you're trying to find where someone is and attack them in different ways. But the games definitely feel very different from each other. And just because you like one doesn't mean you're going to like the other or vice versa. They're just different from each other. But they do scratch the same itch if you're looking for those type of games to play with your. And this obviously is a 4-player game, so it might be easier to get to the table than things like Captain Sonar, which basically requires a full cast of 8 people to play it correctly. So something to consider. But as far as what this game goes, Sabotage, it seems like a lot of people aren't actually talking about this game, and I know exactly probably why a lot of people aren't talking about it. Obviously, it's a possibility that people have never heard about this game, and I hope that this video obviously brings more attention to it. But one of the downfalls of this game is the price of this. This is a $75 game, so it's obviously not cheap at all compared to other board games. It's definitely on the very high end of board game prices, but obviously you guys saw the overview. It's very overproduced in a good way for me because I like how the game looks, but like those models of the pieces and stuff, everything is just greatly the artwork on the game. The trays that you guys saw when I was scanning through the table and how everything is organized. They give you each tray, one for the spies, one for the villains. So it's just very easy, quick setup because you keep everything that's for the spies in one tray and for the villains in the other, and you kind of just hand it to the teams. And if they played it before, they set up their side and they're kind of on their way. But obviously, that's made by game trays, and that's not something cheap. You're obviously going to have to pay extra for that. They're going to have to pay extra to get game trays to make that for them. So that's going to cost us more money. And then, of course, the top section here, where they have like the unique scoring system on the top that also has game trays built into the top. Another unique part of the game is obviously going to make the price of the game go up. So I can see the reasons why it does cost $75, but if you guys are on the fence, obviously $75 is going to be a hard pill to swallow. But as a fan of this game and somebody who's actually already played it multiple times, I just think it's well worth the cost because it's definitely not like any other game that's sitting behind me. This game feels different from any game that I've ever played, and a great combination of theme, hidden movement, going back and forth, fighting each other and stuff like that. It just feels very unique and very fun, and not a lot of games like this out there. And they definitely went over the top as far as producing it, but I'm loving what they did with everything as far as artwork, production, and quality of everything inside the box. As far as the game itself goes, like I said, it's about 45 minutes to an hour as far as gameplay time goes, depending on how fast you obviously do those things. And that is basically what this game ran at. It took me a little over an hour the first time that we played the game, probably an hour and 20 minutes or so when you don't know the rules and you're kind of reading through the cards. But once you get the hang of it, it's definitely 45 minutes to an hour when you're just playing, and you're not taking so long to read those action tiles that you're getting and everything. And like I said before, it could be played with 2 players. I did play it with 2 players. It's still a fun game, but this definitely feels like it's definitely basically a 4-player game only. Just because of the fact that like when you're only playing with 2 players, when you're doing certain things, there's no conversation across the table of what you're doing between each villain that you have controlled or each spy that you have controlled, where you're kind of listening to the other team, seeing what they're doing, and maybe trying to figure out where they're moving to based on their conversations. There's obviously none of that in a 2-player game because you're controlling both characters yourself. So it's basically just, you listening to the cards that tell you to speak and then taking that and then playing it. But that being said, if I never had a 4-player group to play this with, and I only had me and my wife to play this game from here on out, I wouldn't be mad that was the only way I was playing the game, but I would feel like I'm missing a little bit of the game. But I still like the game as a 2-player game. But it is a harder pill to swallow at $75 for this 2-player game when it's not as good as the 4-player game, when there's a lot better 2-player games out there than this one. But like I said, just the uniqueness of the game and the theme just draws me back in regardless. So keep that in mind. It's good as a 2-player game, but a much better game at a 4-player game just because of the constant table talk and everything that's going on. It's a more fun when you're conversing with 2 players as opposed to just taking control of both of the characters yourself. As far as the gameplay goes on the sessions that I played, each game was close. When me and my wife played, it literally came down to the nick of the time. It was down to her needing 2 doomsday devices to hack, and then me needing 2 villains to actually get killed for me to win the game. and it came down to the last round. I literally killed both our guys in the last round, took the last 2 hit points away, and that's how I won the game. But if I wasn't able to take both of them out and knew kind of where they were, and I ended up failing one of those, and I only killed one of them, and she stayed alive, there's a pretty good chance that she was going to be able to beat me the next round or the next 2 turns because of her being able to hack those devices really quickly. Because she would have been able to hack the other device because that's where she was, or right near it, and that would have just basically screwed me completely. So it definitely could have gone either way, but I just hit her at the nick of time and found her pieces at the exact same time. And there's a lot of back and forth with that in this game. And that's basically it, guys. I mean, you guys saw the gameplay overview of this. Looks like a game that's going to interest you guys through that gameplay overview. What I'm talking about, I really like this game. I actually also own Captain Sonar. I don't know if you guys can see it up there, but it's up there. I also do own Captain Sonar, and they're very different, especially because they feel a different niche. I'm never going to play Captain Sonar with 4 people because then that means each person has to control 2 different positions. You can play it that way, but I would never do that. I'd see it more as a bare minimum 6, but at least 6, but more of an 8-player game. So when I have 6 to 8 people here and I want to play a party game atmosphere, I will bring out Captain Sonar and I'll play that. But when I have 4 people at the table and I want to do a hidden movement game that kind of has the similar feel of Captain Sonar, and I have people who are into this theme and can handle it, this is a game that I'm definitely going to bring out with 4 players, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of good time. And it's only 45 minutes to an hour, so it's not that long of a game, and it just provides a hell of a lot of fun, a hell of a lot of like last minute encounters, and you conversing back and forth with your teammate, trying to decide what actions to take, trying to take the other team out, and then when you get really excited as a team, when you're able to hit that villain and take them off the board, hit that spy and take them off the board. There's just a lot of fun game-to-game moments in this game that you're going to be having with your teammates, and a lot of moments that you're going to remember from this game. So really happy to add this game into my collection, and the rules are not that hard to understand. It may take a game or 2, like I said in the overview, for you to get the gist of what you're actually doing, but after you play that one game, you're instantly going to be like, oh, I got it now, and it's not that hard. It's only a 5-page rulebook, I believe, 5 or 6-page rulebook. So the rulebook, it takes a while to read through it. It's weird how it's laid out or how it's written. So it's not the most perfect rulebook. It does have everything you need in there. It's just weird to wrap your head around before playing the first time of what those rules are telling you to do. Which it took me like reading the rules and then be like, I kind of get it, but I'm kind of missing some things. And then I went online and watched a couple of videos and then be like, oh, okay, now it's making more sense with the video tutorials that are online. So I definitely suggest you watch those. There is a video how to play after you read the rules, so you kind of can put it together. And then when you dive into the game, you play around a game or 2, you'll definitely be fitting right at home in how the game actually plays. So that's it, guys. That is Sabotage, a game for 4 players for Tim Flowers, 45 minutes to an hour to play. And if you guys have any questions about anything you guys have seen here today, as always, leave it down below. If not, thank you guys for watching. Till next time.
Tech, UrGamingTechie is the gaming tech, UrGamingTechie, gaming tech. Eating brekkie is the gaming tech, going for a recce is the gaming tech, UrGamingTechie is the gaming tech, UrGamingTechie.